Well, hello, and welcome to a special edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We're going to be talking about our Healing Humanity conference that we just attended in Seattle, Washington. So for those of you that don't know us or don't follow us, please share this and let others know. Follow us and let others know about our podcast. We are all about educating and empowering individuals to take charge of their own health. And at the Healing Humanity Conference, we learned about that, and we gathered with a bunch of other people with like minds. So it was very inspiring. And on our podcast and in general, we talk about taking care of where we discuss everything healthcare. And this was definitely everything healthcare, because so many people access the healthcare system because they are sick because of what they are eating. And at the Healing Humanity Conference today, we met a bunch of great people. We met Dr. Shawn Baker. And for those of you that have followed us before, he's the author of the Carnivore Diet. We've interviewed him a couple times on our podcast. We met Dr. Kiltz. He is a fertility specialist in Syracuse, New York, and he helps people with fertility based on diet. And he promotes eating mostly animal fats to help fertility. So who are some of the great people that we met today?
Dr.
Janet?
Nelson Vasquez. He was very informative, shared his health journey. Of course, all the doctors had their own health journey, but the nice thing about having an event like this is not just only did we have people with credentials, but we also had people that were just sharing their real life story and how they turned their life around with the decisions and choices that they made for themselves every day. So that's really exciting, because one of the reasons, and Shawn already alluded to this, that we are doing the podcast and even doing what we do in our wellness space with our patients in our pharmacy, is that we want people to be given tools that they can use to optimize their own health or to heal themselves. And this was definitely a forum for that today. It was super exciting to see the transformation in people's lives, where perhaps they, had maybe only 40 pounds, maybe 60 pounds, maybe 200 pounds to lose. But it wasn't just losing the weight that was really impressive. It was how they were changing their own lives and how it affected their family as well.
And, speaking of losing weight, there's one fellow that they're following. So this Healing Humanity stay tuned for a documentary where they document. It should be out in about a year. They filmed most everything already. They just need to finish up a couple interviews, and then they need to do all the editing. And there's a lot of work. They've got over 4,500 hours of videos, of film or videos, and they got a lot of editing to do. And they expect it to be out in the next year. But one of the things they did, the first person they interviewed was about a year ago, and he's up in Alaska. I can't remember his name. Bill,
Isn't it Tim?
I can't remember his name, but stay tuned for his journey. He was 700 pounds, right, John? Or 800, 700?
I think he was around 700, yes.
700 pounds. He hasn't left his house in over 4 years. He goes carnivore, and he loses 200 pounds in 267 days. Mm-hmm. He went out, and they went up and followed up just recently, a year later, basically. And he went outside for the first time, and they've got a picture of him, looking at the great outdoors in Alaska. I mean, that is life-changing. The guy, he was going to die in the house alone.
Right.
He was basically bedridden. He had to design his house where his toilet was like 3 steps away, because he couldn't walk to a bathroom that was very far. So that's life-changing. That was all by diet. No magic surgery, no magic pills, no magic injection. It was all by diet, and it changed his life. And there was a guy, and he'll talk about it too. He'll talk about it also. There's a guy, I think he's probably in his 30s. He's going to be on our podcast. Stage 4 cancer. They told me he had 3 months to live.
Anthony,
That's right. They told him he had 3 months to live, and he started doing chemo, everything they told him to do. And he goes through this whole process, and it's making him sicker. The cancer isn't getting any better. So he decides to go carnivore. And how many years later has he been carnivore, and he's still alive, and actually he's in better health than he's been most of his life. So it's a reminder of what we do. So we are pharmacists. For those of you that don't follow us, we are pharmacists that don't believe in drugs to treat long-term disease. When we hang out with people like this, like-minded people, we realize we are doing what's right. We a couple of decades ago, we feel it wasn't ethical to keep giving drugs to people for long-term disease that was created by their lifestyle. And we know what we're doing is right. We can look ourselves in the mirror and say that what we're doing is right. We're not giving them a drug to treat a symptom like high blood pressure or high cholesterol or reflux or name a disease. We're not giving them a drug just to mask symptoms. We are preaching about changing their lifestyle,
Right.
and we absolutely love it.
Well, even May, who is, I believe, she's the carnivore. What's the name of it?
Oh,
Butterstead.
steak and butter gal. She's going to
Yeah,
be
steak,
Bella. Bella, they call her.
I'm sorry, Bella. She really wasn't overweight, but she had high inflammation, cystic acne, was infertile, had lots of issues, and diet made a difference for her. And so, we have to think of what we put inside of our body is the nutrients, is really the drugs our body needs, right? They're not foreign to us. They are what our body requires in order for our body to do the job it needs to do. So, we talked a lot today about the sad American diet, about how that doesn't or hasn't fit with our overall health as a nation, and it's global too. But when we have 70% of the population in the United States is overweight or obese, that is just criminal. That is just wrong. When you go into your doctor or your nurse practitioner or PA, if they never ask you one question about, especially if you have a chronic illness, if they don't ask you one question about your lifestyle and what kind of food you are eating, it's criminal. It really is, because we need food to make our body healthy or keep our body healthy.
Most of our health problems do not come from a drug deficiency. So
No.
drugs are not the answer. They're due to something probably in our diet. And if you listen to Janet and I enough, we preach sleep, diet, and exercise in that order. We'll die without sleep before we'll die without food. So sleep is more important than nutrition. But without good nutrition, you probably won't sleep well either.
Right.
And without good movement, you probably won't sleep well either. So exercise, we also call movement, because sometimes exercise is a dirty word to some people, but it's not. But just move. And some of the diseases that were cured, there was this one guy, actually one of the guys that's shooting film and helping develop the movie. His name's Carey. Stay tuned for him. He's going to be on our podcast. And I'm guessing he was in his late 20s, early 30s when he did this. And he had a pile of medications, probably 20 medications that he was on. Definitely metabolically unhealthy, obese, all kinds of diseases. Congestive heart failure. I don't know, was he diabetic too? I can't remember all the diseases, but
Staggering.
Yeah. And guess what? He changed his diet, lost weight, and he's on nothing now.
Right.
And
he looks very healthy, and how he feels is amazing. That's the good part about the story, is that his outcome isn't just, he healed, but he is a happy individual. In fact, he's one of the producers of the documentary that's coming out, and his stories, I think, probably something that could happen more often than not if we gave our body what it needs to heal.
Yeah. And so if you've got a doctor and they say diabetes isn't reversible, they say psoriasis isn't reversible, eczema, heart failure. This guy had heart failure, was on medications for heart failure.
Hypertension.
We've heard it, but kidney disease. We've interviewed people that have fourth stage kidney disease, and they reverse it by going on an animal-based diet, and doctors tell them, oh, your heart failure is not reversible. Your atrial fibrillation is not reversible. So you're going to have to be on medications the rest of your life, including anticoagulants. The doctors went into that today, that, if you lose weight, get proper blood pressure, your heart probably won't go into atrial fib. And if you're in normal sinus rhythm, you don't need to be on blood thinners. because you won't throw a clot if you're in normal sinus rhythm. So it's all about diet, people. It's what we put in our bodies. We don't need some drug to treat all these diseases. They are lifestyle caused.
Right. So if you've listened to us before, we talk about, not going to the drive up window and not eating things out of a box if we can help it. We want foods that can rot, because if they don't rot, they don't have the organisms that we need as well. But the nutrients aren't as well as good. And forever, we have been vilifying protein, especially meat. We have been vilifying that it is bad for us. It's bad for us for colon cancer. It's bad for us for our kidneys. It's bad for our cardiac health. And folks, I believe it's a flat out lie. I don't trust it. Our ancestors lived mostly on protein from either they gathered it or they raised it. They lived a healthy life. And we had one lady that did a little presentation that they showed a document. She was 82 years old, right?
82 years old.
May, who she would put most people to shame. Maggie, that's right, Maggie. She would put most people today to shame for how strong, how vibrant, how well she can work, how her mind is. So it's physically, mental, and spiritually. And she talked about that we are just killing ourselves by not taking care of our body with the nutrients it needs. And folks, if you want to be like that 82-year-old lady who's out ranching and doing the things that she loves to do every day on a daily basis, 7 days a week, then we got to change what's not fitting us and not working for us.
She's been a carnivore. She's a rancher, so she deals with cows all day long, and she's been a carnivore for 65 years. So here, this gal is 82 years old. They showed her carrying buckets of cattle feed, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And there were 2 buckets in each hand. Each bucket weighed 25 pounds. So she was carrying 50 pounds in each hand, so 100 pounds. The gal probably weighs less than 150 for sure, right?
Yeah, she's
tiny. So she's carrying, 3/4 of her body weight. She's 82 years old, and that's what she does every day. They showed her climbing fences. They showed her throwing and stacking wood. So people, it's almost embarrassing what we see now as Americans, and we've normalized. I've seen 30 and 40-year-olds, maybe even 20-year-olds. Maybe the 20-year-olds is motivation, but I've seen 30 and 40-year-olds that can't do that kind of work. And part of the reason is because their diet, and they don't move like she does. She moves all day long, probably mostly sun up to sundown. And that's what we're made to do as humans. We're made to move all day long. We're made to sleep at night, and we're made to mostly eat an animal-based diet. For thousands of years, that's what sustained us as humans, is eating an animal-based diet. So any doctor that tells you that eating red meat is bad, then ask them how we've thrived on it as humans for thousands of years. Any doctor that tells you eggs are bad and they want to limit your eggs, ask them how we've thrived on eating eggs for thousands of years. Don't buy the cholesterol myth. Yes, animal fats are high in cholesterol. Cholesterol is in every cell in our body. We will die without it. High cholesterol is not the problem with cardiovascular disease. That came up in today in the session. One of the doctors brought up the fact that statins have been out, and if you follow Janet and I, we've been preaching this for years. Statins have been out for almost 40 years to help lower people's cholesterol. Cardiovascular disease is killing more Americans than ever. Every 1.7 seconds, an American dies of a cardiovascular accident, heart attack, or stroke, mostly preventable. Everybody's on a statin that can be, and that accepts them. And yet the numbers are going up. It's not working, people. It's not about cholesterol. It's not about saturated fat. Don't stay away from the eggs. Don't stay away from the meat. Janet?
Yeah. So the reason this is so impactful, at least for Shawn and I, is because in this journey, we've watched people get handed a new drug for every side effect they're having. And if you end up with, 20 drugs now, I would not be surprised. And every time you put another chemical in your body, it doesn't solve the first problem or the next problem that you're going to have. It just keeps escalating. If your doctor has no plan with you on how to remove some of these unneeded medications, you need to find somebody that's going to help you. obviously you might have to start with the sleep and the diet part, and then move. We know these things, but you need to find people who are in the healthcare profession that are willing to listen to you and help you, so you don't live a life where you are, you're set up to have to keep making visits and keep going in to a dealer in a lot of ways. That's what prescribers have ended up being for the big pharma. We've created a system where nobody ever gets better, nobody ever is healed. The end results are all the same. We just keep adding one more drug and one more drug. And Dr. Nelson, we spoke about him earlier, was sharing his story, how he had repeatedly lost like 40 pounds to feel better, but had diabetes. And it wasn't until he had a stroke, I believe, that he actually decided, I'm going to go carnivore. This is what I'm going to do. He reversed his type 2 diabetes. He lost 60 pounds. He's still losing. And he reminds himself every day about what he had looked like prior to having his stroke. And he's wearing this belt, and it's unbelievable how much has came off his waist, but how much energy he has. The guy was hysterical, kind of like almost a stand-up comedian, but his joy, his overall picture of life has also affected his wife and his children and nieces and nephews. I mean, what a blessing. He took care of himself. He fixed himself with the things that he needed to do to remove the chemicals from his body that aren't natural and heal himself with good nutrients and a good lifestyle. And this is affecting all the people in his life. And one of the pictures he put up today was his first grandson. And I can't tell you how beautiful that was, that he has purpose. It's not just him and his wife today and oh wow, it's like he wants to be a healthy person so he can go to the ballpark. And one of the stories he told about was he lives in Florida. He never could go to Disney. He could never go to the parks in Orlando because he couldn't walk. And his wife and him did that. So he's going to be able to go to Disney with his grandkids. I mean, what a gift to them to spend time going on rides and enjoying their excitement and learning life, and in doing that with their grandparents. That's purpose. I mean, that's thriving. That's not just watching them from the sideline. That's actively being a part of that child's life. That is beautiful. I can't tell you from a mother's perspective, but if you have grandchildren, grab that, make that your purpose, to get well, to be better, so you can be a part of their life.
Or children. I mean, my children motivated me to lose weight. And back on his story, so Dr. Nelson, one thing he specialized in treating as a family practice physician was diabetes. And here he is, he's 100+ pounds overweight, and he's a diabetic himself, and he specializes in basically giving these diabetic medications. Oh, by the way, his dose of insulin was, for any diabetics that are out there, you guys will understand this. His dose of insulin was 300 units per day. 300 units per day of insulin. Okay.
That's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
As you guys know, with type 2 diabetes, the problem is not too much insulin. The problem is your insulin's not working. But what we do is we give more insulin, and it's literally like throwing gasoline on the fire, like Janet says. Anyway, he is completely off his insulin now.
Yep.
So if anybody is out there that's watching, that's a type 2 diabetic, and your doctor says that type 2 diabetes is not reversible, get a new doctor. I'm serious. And doctors that are listening, I mean, wake up. I mean, wake the heck up. Because we talked about this today. Dr. Baker talked about it. AI is going to take your job. I mean, these protocols, these prescription protocols with prescribe this drug when your glucose is this level or this disease, AI is going to take your job. There's no doubt about it. That's where it's going. The medical system, the medical, the EMRs, electronic medical records, they're all set up to do that already. So Dr. Baker talked about ChatGPT. There's a bill in Congress to actually give ChatGPT
prescriptive authority,
a medical license, so people can get prescriptions through ChatGPT. Of course, the drug companies love this.
Sure.
I mean, drug companies love it. The drug companies are probably lobbying for that bill. So if the doctors want to compete with, if you doctors that are just drug dealers and not healers, go ahead, compete with ChatGPT. I would prefer to go to a healer. Jan and I prefer to promote healing as pharmacists. We don't want to be dispensers of poisons for big pharma and collectors of copays for insurance companies, which that's really what pharmacists have been relegated to. And they've let that happen, but we're not going to let that happen. Back on some of the diseases, almost every one of the people that shared their stories today, almost every one of them had depression. Okay. And of course, seems like everybody in America has depression now. And so they must have an SSRI deficiency. So we prescribe Prozac, Zoloft, Celexa, Lexapro. I don't even know the other ones. There's some other fancy ones that do a few other things more than just the SSRI. I think they're a bunch of bogus. Placebo worked in 45% of those trials, as placebo effects. So I don't know how well they work. And there are side effects from them, toxicities, because they're poisons. And they're very difficult to get off of by design. The drug companies love it. Yeah. It's hard to get off of them, right?
Yeah, that's one you got to work to get off of for sure.
So depression, these people's depression was reversed by going on a different diet. Why should we be surprised? I mean, this guy that's locked up in his cabin for 4 years, do you think he's depressed? Of course he is. He weighs 800 pounds. He can't walk. He hasn't been outside in 4 years. Of course he's depressed.
Right.
Get up, get outside, move, eat well, sleep well, and you won't be depressed. And I'm not sorry for saying this. I get there's some haters out there that talking about, well, I need medications and I need this mood stabilizer. Well, stop treating your body like crap and you won't need it. And by the way, we're having a podcast on Monday with Kim Watsnack. She had her husband died 20 years ago from taking an SSRI. He committed suicide. Very common side effect from those.
So
so she's going to be on our podcast Monday, 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. You don't want to miss that. She's got a powerful story. She's got either a book or a movie coming out about it too.
Yeah. So on a side note of since we were at a conference talking about nutrition and food, just to fill in some gaps, if you haven't heard us talk about this before, our stomach is where our neurotransmitters are made. So what we put in our stomach really does matter. So if you are just dumping processed food in your gut all day long and it's just wreaking havoc with your whole entire body, it's going to affect your brain as well. So you can't ignore the fact that even if you look healthy and you have these symptoms, you might need to clean up what you're doing with your diet in order for the right neurotransmitters to be produced in our body. So you can't just say like my brain is separate from my stomach or my heart is separate from my kidneys. We work all together. Our organs work all together. So if you could just clean up your gut and get the right processes going again, it makes a huge difference on our mental and emotional health.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to get some of our questions. We had some comments come in and a question. So Aaron J. Grover, howdy, just followed y'all recently, so please apologize the question. But how long have you guys been carnivore? Cheers to a great night. Janet, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so Shawn and I, we aren't 100% carnivore, and we've said this publicly many times. We do eat mostly a carnivore diet. However, we do endurance sports such as cycling. So when we do a lot of that, we will do carbs, but we don't buy, like, I don't have bread in my house. I don't, we don't have ice cream. We do occasionally do have desserts, and that's when we, have a special event, but we share it. But most of our food is whole food. And we were talking about this today at the event. I think we go through a beef like quarterly almost.
Yeah, a full beef every 4 months.
And that's because we have two young men that still raid my freezer that are in our
They don't live with us, but they still raid our freezer, and that's the least we can do for them.
Right, but they are very carnivore based too. But we just don't take things out of a box. We don't,
don't eat drive-throughs.
Right. Center aisle of the store is not a place that we try to go into. In fact, my husband might eat some berries and yogurt. We eat cheese. We eat eggs. So mostly carnivore, but not always. And it really depends on what our training session looks like, or like, for example, what distance we're going to be riding, or if we
How
have an event.
intense?
Yeah, how intense. So
Yeah.
it depends on that. But we've been doing this. I think Shawn has been racing for 10 years now.
11.
11 years.
Yep.
So, he's got it dialed in. We kind of have it dialed in a little bit, but there again, if we do stray, it's not for very long. And if we do not feel very good, we bring it back, and it's really not that hard. We also do, which they didn't talk a lot about today, but we do a lot of intermittent fasting. So usually Mondays, Shawn and I are not working out. If we don't have a workout scheduled that day, we fast until about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, or 5:30 in the afternoon, before we eat. And that's very consistent throughout our life. And it depends on that too for me. So Shawn trains a lot harder. If I'm not working out, I'm not going to eat throughout the day until I get home. And it's not because I have to, but it feels good. I'm comfortable with it. I've been doing it for a long time. And I do believe that fasting is super important to our overall health, because when we were hunters and gatherers, we weren't running to the pantry or the
Every hour to
refrigerator,
eat.
right? So we had to learn that process, and I think it's something that's very valuable in bringing inflammation down. So that's kind of a side note for us, and we just really believe that the closer to earth something is, the healthier it's going to be for you. Today we did talk about foods that, especially that people have had allergies to or responses to, and most of the time it does come from the plant-based society, or plant-based versus red meat or meat. Fish can be on that allergic part, but it's rare that people have allergies to meat. It's very common to have sensitivities or allergies to
Grains.
grains, to vegetables or fruits.
Yep.
So if something makes you feel bad, then don't do it.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Just avoid it. And I think that we do that very commonly, just in our own house.
And yeah, Jan, I realize that sometimes when we, like last night, we went out to dinner with some friends and we didn't eat the best. And we kind of paid for it today. But you know what? We ate better today. And here's what I will say with that when it goes to eating carnivore. So if somebody came to us and they were type 2 diabetic, I would tell them, I would say, go carnivore. And I'd say go carnivore for at least 30 days and see what happens. And of course, if they go strict carnivore for 30 days, their type 2 diabetes will be reversed, guaranteed. Yeah. And they'll always ask, well, what about fruits and vegetables? Well, first of all, as a diabetic, you should not eat any fruit.
Right.
I mean, Jan and I eat very little fruit normally. We have apples in our house, and that's about it.
Berries.
And berries. I guess berries, if you include berries, fruit. And that's it, because they have lower glycemic indexes. And diabetics should not be eating fruit.
No.
And I don't think, at first they should be eating any vegetables. One of the reasons Jan and I can get away with some of this stuff, because we're metabolically healthy now. Once you become metabolically healthy, when I was on a strict diet to lose weight and I was trying to train my brain and train my body to rethink, I was not cheating with that stuff.
Right.
But now that we're metabolically healthy, we can cheat every once in a while, but also we still pay for it sometimes. And then we realize why we don't do those things.
Right. And the comment about there's room to be improve, always. So if Shawn's trying to lean up in our house before he's racing, like he's training for a race, obviously protein becomes our go-to. But from a woman's perspective, of women that are in perimenopause and menopause, well, even our younger women for that matter, we cheat ourselves because we don't have enough protein. Well, once we hit our post and our perimenopausal women and our menopausal women, we're in a state where our body is wasting. Our muscles are not building, and our bones are not staying as strong as they should. So we have to make sure that we put enough protein in our body to rebuild the tissue that can be wasting. So that's why all these lifestyle things that we talk about, like our sleep, our food, and our exercise, become super important as we age, because those are the building blocks, folks. That's what keeps us healthy. It's not a deficiency in a GLP-1. And I know there's a lot of people out there using those right now. But folks, protein almost does the same thing. It satiates your gut, like it sends the message to your brain, hey, I'm full. I guarantee you can hardly ever eat too much ribeye or too much,
I dare
you
you.
know,
I mean,
too
unless you're
much chicken or
and
too much.
right, unless you've already got pretty
Yeah.
super lean and you're trying to get leaner, you know, you might want to, because fat has higher concentration in calories. You might have to eat leaner meats to lean up even more. But in general, most sick Americans couldn't eat too much ribeye.
No.
They really couldn't, and they would still lose weight, especially compared to the standard American diet. So Aaron has another comment. I developed an arugula sensitivity allergy. That's very common. So, I mean, think about what plants do. So plants don't want animals to eat them. Here's a good example. I'm going to give 2 examples of that. Why are jalapeno peppers hot? Capsaicin, which is also used as a medication because it depletes substance P in the nerve ending, so it'll help for pain if you use it topically. Capsaicin is what makes hot peppers hot, whether it be habanero peppers, ghost peppers, scorpion peppers, jalapeno peppers. This is what makes them hot. It's the capsaicin in them. And how much in them is, you know, due to the Sclovian units and all that kind of stuff, which was developed by a pharmacist, by the way, which is kind of cool. His name was Sclovian. They produce that capsaicin to make it hot, so animals don't eat them.
Right.
And then we eat them and we say it's okay. Now, I'm not saying they're not okay for some spice and the spice of your food. I'm not saying that. But there are a lot of people that really shouldn't be eating them or they can't tolerate them. So that's one example. Here's another example. Nicotine. Nicotine comes from tobacco. If people don't know this, nicotine is an insecticide. The tobacco plant produces nicotine so the insects won't eat it. It kills them. Nicotine is used as an insecticide. So plants make poisons so animals don't eat them. Most drugs come from a plant source. Nicotine, for one. Foxglove, digoxin comes from it. Name some other plants that drugs come from.
Bark.
White willow bark, aspirin comes from there. So, you know, the list goes on. So, you know, plants develop these chemicals so, you know, animals don't eat them. So, and when people say that, well, there's certain nutrients we want to get from plants, you know, kale's a great one. Kale, spinach, and arugula. Well, actually look at the nutrients in those plants. It's mostly water. And then there's a few minerals, not much actually.
No.
It's actually, and to actually sustain yourself on like those leafy green vegetables like that, you'd have to eat pounds of it a day. So when people want to compare us to a gorilla, they say, well, gorillas eat bamboo. Yeah, you're right. Gorillas eat bamboo. And guess how much bamboo they eat a day? 40 pounds. Our intestinal tract is not built like a gorilla's. We don't have the things to break down the bamboo like a gorilla does. So we really need to eat the animals that are designed to eat plants. It's amazing what a cow does, or an elk, or a caribou, or whatever grazing animal it is. It's amazing they can eat grass and they can turn it into fat and protein in their bodies. It's incredible the way it works. It actually disobeys physics because they eat less calories than they actually put on weight. It's really hard to understand, but of course it's life. So we're not meant to really understand it because we didn't create it. So we really shouldn't be surprised. But they take all the nutrients in those plants, detoxify them, and then concentrate them in their meat. And then that's what we eat as humans. We are the apex predators on this planet. We're meant to eat other animals. I mean, that's just a fact. Okay?
Yeah. So how I would approach this with people is that if you feel or you think you have a chronic illness, you have inflammation in your body. And that's why going to a diet like this can be very helpful for people, is because when you take away unnatural sugar, because we need sugar in our body to survive, no doubt about it, because the cell requires glucose inside of it for the energy. We have to have it. However, when we have too much of it, it's taxing our pancreas, and it's setting you up for failure, because you have this state of where your body just cannot handle too much glucose. It can't handle the insulin response. So it's in chronic inflammation. It's causing so many different problems, and it manifests itself in so many different places. It could be your gut, it could be, it could be your brain, it could be your joints, it could be your eyes, your kidneys. I mean, it go on and on and on. So it would make sense that, and we do this with our pets, right? When you go to the vet, he will ask you if there's something wrong with your pet, what have you been feeding them? And we're not upset. We're not disgusted. We're not offended. We should be saying this to every single patient. What does your diet look like? We should ask them. We should talk to them about that, because if they can do something every day that's as simple as what they choose to put in their body, that could correct most of their problem without ever jumping to a pharmaceutical. Now, we aren't saying that there isn't a time. I have a car wreck, I break a bone, obviously I want the care that is available for that, but not in the time of a crisis. Yes, when we're talking about trauma, I think we do amazing. No doubt about it. Hands down, I think we do amazing. But when we get into the chronic part, we if you went to visit somebody in the hospital, 9 times out of 10, the food that they're going to give that person, and I don't care what they're in for, is going to be full of processed carbs or sugars. And that is the last thing that they need. It's the last thing that they need. Instead of giving them something that's almost poison, which I believe it's reached that point, because we know, for example, I throw this out to my clients, we know we all need water. And we know that if we drink too much water, we can get sick from it. In fact, you can die from it. Or if you don't have enough water, you can die from that too. So there's a balance. So you have to find what nutrients your body needs in order to be healthy.
Yeah, and we're gonna answer a question from Aaron Grover, and thank you, Aaron, for these questions. And of course, this question came up today, and we've talked about this many times before. Makes sense. I'm respectfully curious. Are you all supportive of the MAHA movement? So Jan and I were at the MAHA ball in Washington D.C. in January, and we like to say that we were MAHA before MAHA was cool. So all of a sudden, the last year or so, maybe a couple years, it's all of a sudden cool to be healthy and talk about health and how pharmaceuticals are bad. It's like, well, Jen and I have been preaching this for decades. But here's what we also know. And of course, for those of you that don't know, I wrote a book about this, and it's called Sickened: How the Government Ruined Healthcare and How to Fix It. It's on Amazon. It was the #1 seller on Amazon. And one of the things I discuss is that the government, in our healthcare system, the government caused the problem. The government's not going to solve the problem. So it's the same thing with the MAHA movement to make us healthy and to get away from bad food. Outlawing red food dye, outlawing seed oils, which they haven't done, but they've done some outlawing them dyes. I'm not one for prohibition myself. I believe in liberty, and I believe that we should decide what we put in our own bodies. We all know what happened when we outlawed alcohol and what problems that caused. I don't believe in prohibition when the government does that, because it creates a whole other set of problems, and people end up dying that don't necessarily need to die. Just by a gun instead of a product. So my goal in my book, and my book came out before COVID, which COVID exposed what a mess the whole healthcare system is. But my book, it was all timing. I don't believe in coincidences. It came out, in December 24th, 2019, right before COVID came out, or a month or so before. And basically in chapter 6, we talk about the fix of how to fix healthcare. And the major fix is right here. It's right here, us educating people to educating and empowering people to take charge of their own health. Ultimately, the individual has to take charge of their own health. Don't look towards a government. Don't look towards a doctor. Don't look towards your insurance company, especially, because they are evil. They don't care about your health. It ultimately is up to you, and you got to educate yourself about what to put in your body. Jen and I don't really eat a lot of stuff, if any stuff, with red food dye in it, I don't think.
No.
Do we eat some seed oils? Probably sometimes we do. But we buy beef locally. Our beef that we go through, we buy locally from a rancher. We know how it's fed. We know, we know what's in it. So don't tell me that the government has to outlaw food dyes and seed oils so we can eat healthy. Don't tell me they got to outlaw fast food or make these regulations on it or outlaw whatever dye, or well, they're not in other countries. Well, who cares? Vote with your pocketbook.
Yeah.
I'm a free market kind of guy. The way to stop that stuff, don't buy it. Vote with your pocketbook.
Yeah. So, here's a great point that Shawn brought up that I totally embrace. As consumers of our food and consumers of healthcare, we should be the ones that are demanding change. I am so grateful that they are discussing it and it's open again to actually talk about the problems. It's on the platform, but we should be the ones demanding it. We need to say, hey, we don't want this stuff anymore in our food. And that could be us directly as consumers going to the companies that are making our food. Or, like Shawn said, it could be, hey, it's not being sold anymore. Nobody's buying it. I really think there's a huge, huge way of shifting this. The less you put in your cart and bring home, the more those companies have to make changes. Because if they can't sell something, they got to figure out something else, right?
It's
and
basic econ.
Yeah, and the same thing with when it comes to healthcare. Stop putting money in accounts of places that are acting like drug dealers and not healers. I mean, seriously, folks, find somebody who's willing to help you. And yes, it is important to talk about this on a national level. So that part of MAHA, I'm very pleased with. I'm really excited that people are actually reading labels. But folks, if there's more than a few, maybe 3 ingredients in a product, don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Right.
Just leave it.
And really, honestly, when you go to the store and you buy ground beef, it doesn't have an ingredient list on it.
It shouldn't.
Right.
Unless there's some chemical in there.
So one more comment from Aaron, because I do want to comment on this. Aaron, you're not filling up we appreciate the comments. Nicole Shanahan went to your high school a decade earlier. I love Nicole Shanahan. I love what they're doing with the MAHA. I love what she was doing with the MAHA movement. If you have any way to reach out to her, we would love to have her on our podcast to discuss these kind of things, because government does have a place in the MAHA movement, I think, but ultimately, and ultimately it's to help educate consumers of what to decide is healthy for themselves. So Aaron, if you have any access to Nicole Shanahan, please message me and let me know, and we'll reach out and try to get her on our podcast. So that pretty much wraps up our podcast. So we appreciate you guys. This is kind of a last minute special podcast edition, and we appreciate you guys for following us and listening to us. We stream live on Facebook. We've got a couple different Facebook pages, YouTube under Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy, my Twitter page, Shawn Needham, my Twitter page, and we are actually streaming live on Instagram. This is the first time we're streaming live on Instagram through StreamYard. We stream live on Instagram once a week for a question and answer session with the pharmacists that you guys definitely don't want to miss out on. We have quite a few followers, millions of views on our Instagram, and over 110,000 followers. And every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, if it works on our schedule, which usually it does, we make it work. We stream live, and it's questions and answers time with the pharmacists, and we talk about everything healthcare. So go to our Instagram page, Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, and follow us, and also go into that Q&A that's upcoming and start asking questions, and we will start off that and follow us live, and you can ask those questions. So we appreciate you guys for following us. We love what we're doing. We are 2 pharmacists that are very passionate about educating and empowering individuals to take charge of their own health. So thank you all for following us and tuning in today. Thank you.